Hello everybody, thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you're new to this channel, I just want to say thank you so much. So like my podcast is a mixture of things, pretty much just like talks about the stuff that we see today. And like the most important thing in my podcast, I try not to be biased, but with this topic, some people are probably gonna think I'm biased. It's a very controversial topic. It's the whole clash between Palestine and Israel. You know, for years and years we've been seeing this just non-stop bashing of heads, you know, and people probably want to understand like what's going on. Like, you know, me being Muslim growing up, like I feel like I have some of understanding, but I feel like what is going wrong is people are not looking at history. People are just taking things for face value for what they see right now. So like for instance, like just for example, like we all saw when Hamas came in with the paragliders and, you know, they went through like the barricades and like Israel was like supposedly sleeping, and with all these billions and billions of dollars that we give them every year, how did they not see this coming? However, I don't want to get too much into that, but just seeing that visual can be very bad, and that's when people start choosing sides.
Whose side are we on?
They automatically assume that the Palestinians are dangerous, they're crazy, they're animals. That's what you guys are seeing today. That's what they're calling us on the news. Or I'm not Palestinian, I'm from Yemen, but you know, as a Muslim, we consider ourselves part of them. You know, like they say that when you like when you attack one Muslim part of the world, like the other part of the world, we should feel it as well. Like that's just in humanity as general. Like there should be no Muslim Christianity. Like at the end of the day, there should be just people, like humans. Like I just really hope that end of the day, like just humans will stop dying and stop suffering. So again, like this topic, I'm not here to bring up any hatred or it's none of that. I really hope that I'm able to shed some light, and I really took, you know, my sweet time making this document, like trying to highlight important things that will kind of shed light again to like about everything that's going on. So let's take a dive into history. First, before I start off anything, I just want to say there is a difference between Jews and Zionists. Well, in my opinion, because we automatically assume like all Jews are like the enemy. Like people say like, oh, Muslims, we hate Jews, or we want to kill Jews and whatnot. It's not that. And people are like, but in the Quran it says that you should go kill a Jew. Again, there's context to everything. I'm not saying there's a context behind killing someone, but for example, like during that time, because a lot of my friends be like, yo bro, in the Quran it does say that you guys have to go kill a Jew, or your prophet Muhammad says, you know, peace and blessings be upon him, says go kill a Jew and stuff like that. I hear that a lot, and it does kind of like bother me, but I try to be patient and I try to like tell people like it's not what you see. Like everything is, when it's translated into English, it's crazy, right? So just that itself, like Muslims, we do not hate Jews. There is a difference between Zionists and there's a difference between Jews. Like I said, it's my opinion.
My opinion's the only one that counts.
You guys are just here just to observe the information, and
just an observation.
And hopefully you guys can tell, you guys will be able to distinguish between what is right, what is wrong. So let's get straight into it. So, by the way, sorry, people are gonna be like, well, who are the Zionists? Like, you know, what are Zionists? Because a lot of people who know who Zionists are, and there's a lot of people who don't know who Zionists are. I don't want to go into this whole like this loophole about who Zionists are, but let's just say they're not the good people.
There are people out here who mean to harm you.
Some people are probably gonna hate me for saying that, but
I don't care.
yeah, so they are not the good people. So let me go back into history. The Zionists saw themselves as coming home to the ancestral land of the Jewish people. So you guys, as everyone knows, as God's chosen people, you know, it's in the Bible, the Quran, and the Torah, you know, they were known as God's chosen people. But we know the story that, you know, they disobeyed and whatnot. So my next bullet point, and that is the drive and the passion behind Israel. So they really want to settle in this land that is already occupied by the Palestinians, whom let them live there. Like, Jews, Arabs, you know, like Christianity, Judaism and Islam, like we all live together like peacefully. But you know, with the Zionist movement, that's when Israel had this agenda. Arabs had been residing on this land since the Middle Ages, and they didn't see any reason for it to be taken away from them. So imagine you being in your land and you see people settling in your backyard, and they're like, yo, get out, I'm taking your home, you know? So the majority of people define themselves by their clan before the 20th century. So during that time, you would have to basically tell people what part of the tribe, what tribe you're from, so on and so on, or by the type of place that you lived in. So you would basically tell people what city you're from, what village you're from, for example. That's how it was back then. And that's just like how it is for Arabs. Like when we go to like a liquor store or something, or just a store in general, and you know, me being Arab and them, and a lot of times they're Arab, and they're like, who are you? I'm like,
my name is John Dacre.
I'm Adham. They're like, what's your family's name? I'm like,
Oh God, somebody get me out of this.
and they just start going on this question. They want to know who your family is. They want to know your ancient family. Like, it gets crazy. But yeah, so that's how it was back then. Until this day, honestly, like that's my opinion. Or another way that people were able to distinguish themselves was by their faith. So you would either say you're Muslim, you're Christian, you was Jewish, etc., etc. And another bullet point that I put was like, therefore, the distinct identities that exist within the Arab family was a result of the post-World War I era. So that's what I got from the documentary I saw. So they were saying like this whole process I'm describing you was like somehow it was influenced due to World War I. So my next bullet point was, while there were people living on the land for roughly 700 years, like the Palestinians during that time concentrated mostly in the hill areas. Like that's just something to keep in mind. I really thought that was interesting because I just felt like it will help us analyze the economic impact of Jewish settlement in Palestine. So for example, like back then, like Palestinians or Muslims during that time would stay on the hills and mountains because they can oversee like the water, and to see during, like, I think it was during the Crusades, they'll be able to see who's coming in and coming out, so they'll be able to like defend themselves. So when the Zionists came, they saw that, they knew that the people were so strong because they were able to occupy certain areas that would prevent like them being overthrown. So therefore, it was very convenient for the Zionists to settle in that area, in those coastal areas with lower local population densities or smaller populations. So about 2,000 families of peasants were evicted from their homes and given compensation so that the Zionists could establish their own state in that area that I was just pretty much talking about. So they took over those areas, they kicked 2,000 families out, and they just compensated them with food and money and whatnot. It's pretty sad, you know? Let's see. So Jews from the East Bank of Jordan, as well as those from Syria and Lebanon, were drawn to the area when they developed that new area. Like basically when they set up those settlements in those coastal areas, Jews like around the world knew that like, oh wow, like we're gonna settle, there's gonna be a Jewish state. So it was very exciting for Jews, and it was very sad for the Palestinians there at the time. So again, there was just two sides of the coin, you know? My next bullet point was that individuals with little knowledge of the Middle East believe that Israel is the only novelty on the political map. And this is a very important point because Israel will often show on media a map of only Israel and will literally not show Palestine or Gaza and whatnot. Literally just showing the Palestinian people that they are not existent. Although there's about I don't know how much million Palestinians living in Palestine, but again, it's just like that political power, that propaganda, like it's just interesting. So this is undoubtedly a serious mistake because the majority of Middle Eastern nations emerged from the ruins of the Ottoman Empire during World War I. So in 1920, the League of Nations granted biblical land on both banks of the Jordan to Britain as a special mandate. So like, where did Britain come from? But we all know Britain during that time, you know, they were the powerhouse, and they are, I think, till this day still. But yeah, like, as you can see, it was just a lot of political grabbing, or just a lot of nations coming in and digging their hands in places that they should not even be in. But that's just the world that we lived in, and the world we continue to live in today. So the minister at the time, Winston Churchill, makes the decision to divide the required kingdom along the Jordan River and guide his family possession of the East Bank. So as you can see again, like, they're just grabbing land that's already occupied and just giving to people. Like, that's just one way they were like breaking down the Palestinian people. They were just, yeah, it's really sad just thinking about it. I think it was called this Scramble for Africa, or this, basically during that time when Africa was like being broken up to pieces and they were given to like Britain and other European countries. And I remember I learned that in my Afram class, and it was pretty sad to learn that. So moving on, let's see. I said, for some British reasons, in 1946, the land was made into a separate kingdom under King Abdullah and later his grandson, King Hussein. So again, when Britain came in, they were just dividing land and saying, hey, you own this land, when back then it was just one site, it was just one people. Although we had different tribes and different languages, we were just one people. But when these powers came to play, we can see, a foreshadow of what was to come. My next bullet point was, there have always been Arabs in the Arab world who wanted to be acknowledged and recognized. So when Palestine was still part of Turkey at the beginning of 1913, there were Arab nationalists who desired to negotiate with Jewish nationalists. Because today we see that they assume that Arabs, we don't want to negotiate. Oh, we're just some barbaric people who just want to kill in the name of God and in the name of religion. When back then there is proof in history that shows that there are Arabs that tried to negotiate with the Jewish people during that time and trying to like resemble a better, resemble a better outcome, instead of just clashing and fighting. But unfortunately, a lot of times when the Arabs wanted to negotiate, they were oftentimes killed or assassinated. That's what it said. That's what it was said right here in the documentary. It was said that the tragedy for the Arabs and the tragedy for Israel has been that whenever they were strong recognitions of those who were prepared to negotiate with Israel, they were intimidated or assassinated. But mostly it was the Arabs that they said were intimidated or assassinated, because the Zionists did not play. They did not want people to come together, and because they really wanted their own state. So they just saw that negotiations was a risk, Moving on. So within the family of the leading rejectionists of the modern time, I think his name was Hajj Amin al-Husseini, whose relative was prepared to talk about peace with Israel, but he was killed in 1946 or 1947. And the leader of the Arab trade union was also killed in the late 1940s. So again, we're just seeing that all these people who want to negotiate were being killed or gunned down and whatnot. So indeed, King Abdullah, Hussein's grandfather, was also killed because he wished to make peace with Israel. So this pattern again, you make peace with Israel, you get killed. Doesn't make sense. So as we can see, history has shown us that Arabs were willing to make peace, to compromise, and to coexist with these two nationalities. But it seems to me that there was a lot of evil at play. So there's a whole lot of clashing over the small piece of land. But this small piece of land isn't just any ordinary land. It's very holy land to both nationalities. I would love to get into it and say why it's holy, but it's very deep. So my next bullet point was that in every phase, you would see more and more land taken and more Palestinians fighting against the occupiers and Palestinians being oppressed and outgunned and etc. So in 1937, the idea of the partition of Palestine is first put in the air by the Appeal Commission. So it was somewhat kind of a hope there, for the Palestinian people. When the UN and the Zionists went into this little room, in this little chamber, who knows where they were, they had this long discussion about what they were going to do. And pretty much after the discussion, Palestine was divided in the 1947 proposal by the UN. So the goal of these talks between the UN and the Zionists was to devastate Palestine and was to seize more and more territory and drive out its people and to drive out the Palestinian people one by one. So it's really sad that you could just pass a law just to continue the dehumanization, and at that time the world watched. It's really, really sad. So my next bullet point was that the western portion of Palestine was to be divided, given Arabs half of their portion, which it wasn't even half. It was like barely any land. And the Jews agreed to that, to the portion that was promised to them. But the Arabs, the Palestinians, they refused. And that's when the war broke out. And the Arabs end up losing because they were going against crazy superpowers. So, and what you see today, like with what's going on with Hamas and Israel, is like the resurrection of this story, or of this clashing. So basically throughout history, the world's superpower has backed up Zionists in their efforts to recognize Israel as a state in Palestine as non-existent. So there's a lot more that goes on, but I feel like I just touched on like these essential points because it gets really deep. There's so much history that has so much relevance of what I'm talking about, but it's just so much to talk about. But I just also added that this conflict, that what you see today, portrays a lot of biblical and revelational material. So like, I don't want to go into that, but yeah, what you're seeing today isn't just some random coincidence. You know, I don't know. It's just my opinion. Some people are like, nah, man, it's just people fighting over land. But yeah, what we're seeing has been talked about thousands of years ago. So it's interesting. So now, like, we're done with the history. So I want to like go to today, like what we're seeing today right now, right? So like what I'm seeing right now on the mainstream is like media saying pray for Israel, give them hell, calling the Palestinians animals, barbaric, etc. And like you see that the world, like the politicians are also pushing this one side, and it's just really interesting. And I was like, we also see celebrities supporting an army that is responsible for killing many innocent people. Although there is casualties on both sides, like don't get me wrong, there is casualties on both sides. I am not condoning killing at all. Like, I condemn war, and I just hope it doesn't seem that I'm supporting war. I'm just, like I said, giving information. Like,
That's some pretty good inside information.
my last podcast, I said, I'm just here to give information. I'm not here like trying to say, hey, choose this side. I'm just giving you history and giving you like some information to help you understand like maybe what's going on, you know? However, if we paid attention to history, or within the past couple of years, can we say that Israel is truly innocent? Like, you guys saw, like, whenever Ramadan would begin, they would start, like, bombarding the mosque and start beating up the people while they're praying. Like, we all seen those videos. We can't all, like, act like that didn't happen. So my next bullet point was, like, I'm not saying all Jews are bad. There are a lot of Jews that are peaceful and loving and literally protesting against Zionism and are being locked up and maybe even being killed. Who knows? There are a lot of good Jews out there. And I used to live in New York, and there was like whole communities that were full of Jewish people, and I've talked to many, and yeah, like I said, I'm talking about a certain group. So, and then like today, what we're seeing right now, there's like national landmarks are being displayed with the Israeli flag. And I seen yesterday that Australia, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, they lit up like the Israeli colors, like on that one very famous landmark that they would have. So overall, it's just media showing only one side, you know? And I hate that about media in general. Like, they don't want to show both sides because they're just showing the side of Hamas. Like, just, yeah, like, it's very graphic what you're seeing. I'm not like, yeah, there's a lot of killing on both sides, but there's a lot of stuff that we can't ignore as well. So my next bullet point, I was pretty much talking about like how for 75 years, Israeli forces will smash into homes, shoot children, kill journalists, take prisoners for an indefinite period of time, bomb entire cities, level entire villages, destroy generations of families, and imprison 2.2 million civilians in the largest open-air prison in the world. Like, literally, there is 2.2 million people being held hostage right now. No food and water. Literally, people dying of hunger and starvation and lack of resources. And there's no hospitals right now because all the hospitals are being bombed. So, very sensitive material. And my next bullet point is, and now we are told to pray for Israel. So, in general, we should just pray for the whole world, you know? But it's just interesting. We are told, like, they're literally pushing this agenda, like, pray for Israel, pray for Israel, pray for Israel. What about pray for Palestine? What about the kids that are dying right now on the street? You know? So my next bullet point was that the occupied have chosen to stand up to the occupier for the first time in history. And Palestinians chose to rebel against their invaders for the first time, and the media is not having it. So it's interesting, like when Palestinians finally like, you know what? Let's just stand up, even if everybody's gonna think we're bad, everybody's gonna think we're crazy. I don't know, I could be wrong, it's just my opinion. But like, as soon as they decide to stand up and to fight against the oppressors, this is what happens. Literally, Gaza is being leveled to the ground as we speak. It is acceptable for Ukraine to fight its enemies, but if Palestine does the same, things do not go well, right? We can see that Palestinians are told to put up with the blockades. They are told to deal with people occupying their lands and kicking them out their homes, and like they are told to watch their children get arrested and witness the abuse of their holy sites. So the hypocrisy is just so bad, so bad. So my next bullet point is that Israel is literally the strongest military. They get billions of dollars every year to supply their military strength. And they have the most funded army in the world. Like America, like we love Israel. Like we give them, I don't know how much billions of dollars we give them a year, but we give them a lot of money. They also possess space assets, such as sophisticated fighter jets that are currently destroying Gaza, sophisticated armed drones, and don't forget nuclear weapons. Like they got nuclear weapons. We think they don't, but they do. All right, next is that, and I was like, and they're fighting an army that flies hang gliders. Like literally, we give them billions and billions of dollars, and they were overtaken by militant groups in hang gliders.
And furthermore, no comment.
No comment. So how could Israel have missed this coming? Like that's just my question. Like how could they have missed this coming? That just kind of just sparks a lot of questions in my head. Like thinking all this is planned, maybe, who knows? Just my opinion. So I was like, with all the money that we give them, like how were they not able to see that they were literally ripping through the fences, flying in the air, so on and so on. So like overall, it is sad to see these bombings and people starving and people just being cut off from the world. Like I have a lot of friends that are Palestinian and they can't even go help their family. Yet they can't even talk to them because everything is cut off. So it's really unfortunate. Like I said, on both sides. So if you have families on both sides, I really do apologize, and I hope everything will be okay, because there's literally this is not just people throwing rocks anymore. This is full metal, like real full metal. The bombings that I'm seeing, it's so sad. I don't really recommend you guys watching these videos, because while I was doing this, I was watching the videos just to I guess feed my drive, and it was just very emotional. I don't like seeing just people in general suffer. It's really sad. So that's the end of my podcast today. I just feel like I had to break this down, or try my best to break it down. So I feel like the theme overall is, when you see something, don't just take for face value. Look at it from all sides. Look at history. Look at the people who are actually being oppressed. Look at their stories. As soon as we see that, Hamas is invading Israel and whatnot, they just see Muslims as these crazy people. Again, it's just Islamophobia. Because I'm Muslim and I've been growing up with this burden over my shoulders. I remember I was a kid, and I'm not saying I was afraid to tell people I was Muslim, but I was living in New York, and the whole 9/11 thing happened. As I got older and I realized that 9/11 was done by Muslims, I kind of grew up afraid telling people I was Muslim, because I was seen as the ones who bombed these buildings and whatnot. So overall, I just find war terrible, and I just hope that we all can pray at this moment. And I just really hope that there will be peace, because right now it's just getting started. So again, may we pray, and let's just change the way we see things now. And overall, when you, like I said in my last podcast, when you see injustice, let's speak upon it. Like with me doing this right now, I feel like it's just a way for me to like someone bring justice, you know? There's a lot of people being killed right now and their names are not going to be remembered. So like me doing this podcast, I feel like it's, I don't know, I feel like I'm there spiritually, you know? So I just recommend people in general, like, start caring for people, you know? Like, and I know we do care about people. I know deep down, like humans, we care about people. We have that seed of love in us. But like, we'll literally watch videos of people in Palestine being bombed and we'll literally just like not even give any thought. We'll be like, oh, so what? It's not happening in our backyard. But like, if we allow something to happen like this across the world and we just ignore it, karma, I'm telling you, karma or God, whatever you believe in, you know, like what goes around comes around. So I just really hope that like, as we're here comfortable, like, you know, having food and water, there's literally people right now being stripped from these things. Like there's people like, yeah, it's just really sad. Again, overall with this whole Palestine and Israel thing, I don't know when it will stop, but I just hope it ends soon because I'm tired of seeing this. I'm truly tired of seeing this, years and years of Palestine being oppressed. But yeah, thank you guys again for clicking on this video. I hope to see y'all next time. My next podcast I'm gonna do is gonna be some dark history. I don't want to tell you guys what's gonna be about yet, but I just want to say my next podcast is gonna be pretty interesting. I hope. But all right, thank you guys and God bless, and I hope you guys have a great day or night and keep grinding and keep pursuing your dreams. Peace out, y'all.